Number 5. Vatican City becomes a sovereign state. On this day in history, June 11, 1929, after centuries of fluctuating control over the region, the Vatican finally establishes itself as an official sovereign state. This would take the form of the Lateran Treaty between Italy and the Holy See, the governing body of the Roman Catholic Church. The treaty was actually signed on February 11, 1929, but it wasn't until June that the Italian government officially recognized the independence of Vatican City. The new nation was to consist of the area of Rome known as Vatican Hill, which had been the historical seat of power for the papacy since the reign of Pope Pius IV in the 16th century. It also included some other small areas around central Rome, including the Lateran Palace where the Pope would reside, along with various churches and other buildings. The area would be just over 109 acres, or just under 44 hectares. This made it the smallest country in the world by both area and population. While Vatican City's small size has remained consistent, its population has fluctuated quite a bit over the years. During the period following World War II, when Europe was in a state of flux and many were questioning the role of religion in society, there was a massive surge in Catholicism worldwide leading to the rapid growth of the Vatican population. By 1965, the population had reached 500,000. But in more recent times, the Church's influence in Western nations has waned, leading to fewer people identifying as Catholic and thus a decrease in population. As of 2023, the population of Vatican City is about 825 residents. Number 4. Israel destroys Iraq's Osirak nuclear reactor. On this day in history, June 1981, Israel airstrikes destroy Iraq's nearly completed nuclear reactor near Baghdad, preventing Saddam Hussein from developing nuclear weapons. Known as Operation Opera, the mission involved 8 Israeli fighter jets flying 1,500 miles to their target and back again. All planes returned safely, and in total, only one bomb was dropped, a powerful 6,000-pound bomb which completely destroyed the Osirak nuclear reactor. American satellites detected signs of nuclear activity at the site immediately after the attack, which had been planned during the previous administration of Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Begin's successor, Yitzhak Shamir, refused to comment on the airstrikes, saying he was not going to confirm or deny it. Although the United States was not directly involved in the operation, they did support the strike politically, and intelligence officials informed the Americans prior to the attack. However, the U.S. president at the time, Ronald Reagan, was reportedly furious with Israel for undertaking the mission without warning, and was so angry that he considered breaking diplomatic relations with them. According to reports, he shouted at Israel's ambassador, saying something along the lines of, "What the hell were you thinking of? What kind of a thing is that to do, to attack a sovereign nation like that?" But despite these strong words, the U.S. continued to supply Israel with military aid and worked closely with them to gather intelligence regarding Iraq's nuclear program in the lead-up to the Gulf War. 3. Contraceptives become legal in the U.S. On this day in history, June 1965, the U.S. Supreme Court rules in the case of Griswold versus Connecticut that laws banning the use of contraceptives are unconstitutional. The case was a landmark ruling on privacy rights and paved the way for the legalization of birth control across America. The case came about due to the arrest of a couple who had been using a particular form of birth control. Estelle Griswold, director of the Planned Parenthood League of Connecticut, and her husband opened their home to several other couples so they could use a type of birth control called a diaphragm, a device inserted into the vagina to prevent pregnancy. Griswold and her husband were arrested for breaking Connecticut's law banning the use of contraceptives. Griswold then took the case to the Supreme Court, where it was argued that the Connecticut law violated her constitutional right to privacy. The court agreed with Griswold and ruled that the use of contraceptives by married couples was indeed a fundamental right. While this case overturned existing laws against contraception, there was still a ban on the sale of contraceptives, and further court cases needed to be fought to overturn those laws. These bans were based on the Comstock Laws of 1873, which outlawed the mailing of obscene materials, including contraceptive devices and information on sexual health. Several states had already legalized contraception by the time this ruling came down, but many others did not. This decision gave women greater control over their reproductive rights and allowed them to make decisions about when to start a family and how many children to have, which led to a sharp decline in unwanted pregnancies and abortions. However, access to contraception and abortion remains a contentious issue in America to this day. Number 2. The Battle of Midway takes place. On this day in history, June 7, 1942, the Battle of Midway begins. Considered one of the most important battles of the Second World War, the Battle of Midway was fought between the United States Navy and the Imperial Japanese Navy. The battle occurred just 6 months after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, which brought the U.S. into the war, and the battle took place near the tiny atolls of Midway in the Indian Ocean. The Japanese had hoped that a victory at Midway would force the U.S. to give up control of the Pacific territories and allow Japan to expand its empire. But the U.S. had broken Japanese codes and knew the Japanese plan. So they set a trap, luring the Japanese fleet into an ambush. The result was catastrophic for the Japanese. 4 of their best aircraft carriers were sunk, along with 3 other ships and a seaplane tender. On the American side, only 1 ship was lost, the USS Yorktown. Around 3,000 Japanese sailors died during the battle, while the Americans lost about 300 men. Following this defeat, Japan was on the defensive for the remainder of the war. Had Japan won the Battle of Midway, it could have given them the upper hand in the Pacific, and the outcome of the war could have been very different. Number 1. The first practical personal computer goes on sale. On this day in history, June 1977, the first practical personal computer, the Apple II, goes on sale. Developed by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and other engineers, the Apple II was one of the first computers to include a keyboard, color graphics capabilities, and a user-friendly interface. Prior to the development of the Apple II, computers were often bulky and expensive machines used mainly by large corporations and universities. The Apple II changed all that by offering a computer that was small enough and affordable enough to be used in homes and offices. At a price tag of $1,600, the Apple II was not exactly cheap. But compared to the mainframes and mini-computers that dominated the market at the time, it was relatively affordable. The Apple II quickly gained popularity, selling out almost immediately after its release. In fact, demand for the Apple II was so high that Jobs and Wozniak had to rent a small airplane hangar just to store the parts for all the computers they had to build. The success of the Apple II paved the way for other companies to produce personal computers and led to the eventual development of the modern laptop. The impact of the personal computer on society has been nothing short of revolutionary. They have transformed the way we work, play, and interact with each other. The Internet, social media, and smartphones are all products of the personal computer revolution that began with the introduction of the Apple II. Thanks for watching. Do you think that the development of the personal computer has improved our lives? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.